Now, what is each side trying to get out of this visit, do you think?
Oh, yes, I think at first it's a bilateral visit, of course, between the Sudanese president and the Russian president in Sochi, and not in Moscow exactly, but for Sochi, it's a very important place for the time being, for all the conflicts in the region. And I think it's not just a bilateral visit, but it's an international visit in the framework of all the developments that are taking place in the Middle East and in the Arab world and Muslim worlds, and between at higher level between America and between Russia, for example. I think that, of course, what can be noted is that, by this diplomatic movement, Russia is trying to attract the Sudan in its orbit, diplomatic orbit and zone of influence. What Moscow has done the same thing with Turkey, with Saudi Arabia, with other countries, and I think that there is a big change of alliances, the change in the diplomatic and political balance in the Middle East in favor of Russia, that has become, as it is visible in every step of its démarche, as the uncontrollable, unavoidable place for all the big diplomacies in the world for the time being. Russia has become the master of most of the important diplomatic files in the diplomatic questions in the regions and out of the region. This is quite clear. And for Bashir, I think that we have noted, of course, the importance of the delegation and the importance of this summit in Sochi. That's quite a symbol from the Russian viewpoint, because of all that events that are taking place for the time being. And the change that is being expected from the Sudan regarding, for example, the Syrian conflicts. We have heard Bashir saying yesterday, on the first day of his visit, that he sees no future for Syria without Bashar al-Assad. I think that he was exactly saying the contrary some months ago. And there is a big change in his position, and I think it is closely related to his rapprochement with Russia. As far as the International Criminal Court is concerned, I think that it's not, in my view, it's not very important, because Russia is far from being the first country where Omar al-Bashir goes on official visit or on working visit. This is an official state visit to Russia.
That is true, but if I could just jump in.
He has gone to Peking several times, has gone.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like you say,
yes.
Bashir has been abroad a few times since that ICC indictment. Russia has no obligation to hand him over, but other countries that Bashir has visited have had that obligation, and they haven't done anything about it. Is this partly, do you think, because of this accusation by some African countries of being unfairly targeted by the ICC?
Yes, of course, we have heard it's not a question between the Sudan and the International Criminal Court. It's a general accusation by many Arab countries and African countries and other countries in the world, saying that there is a double standard position by the ICC. And it has become, since the very beginning, after its creation, as a specialized tool directed against, let's say, the Arab countries, the African countries, and the non-Western countries. That is clearly not neutral. It is taking sides in all the conflicts, in all the problems, and this is the reason why so many countries do refuse to cooperate officially or unofficially with the International Criminal Court. It's the case not only for Sudan, but for many Arab and African countries. And I think that Bashir, of course, it was quite clear that going to Moscow, Omar al-Bashir wouldn't be, arrested in Moscow. It is clear he was invited for a state visit, and it was very likely that he could come back very safely. I have no doubt on that. And it's not only because of Russia refusing to, but many countries in the world do refuse the conclusions on the decisions of the International Criminal Court that is felt and resented as being a non-neutral justice court.
Could you remind us what those conclusions are?
Sentiment.
Remind us why it is that he's wanted, Omar Bashir, by the court.
Yes. Omar al-Bashir by the court, I don't know. If Omar al-Bashir were to be, presented to the International Criminal Court or arrested, I think that what would be expected is for the International Criminal Court to call for and to send arrest mandate, for many heads of states, and not only the Arab countries and the African countries and the non-Western countries, but also many responsible of the crimes that were committed during the last 20 or 25 years. And so this is the reason why the criminal court cannot be accepted as being a neutral international justice. It is not, in my viewpoint, and in the viewpoint of many people. That is the reason why this International Criminal Court is so few respected, and its decisions are not respected. This is the reason why, I suppose.
So in your view, then, we can expect Omar Bashir to keep travelling in defiance of that indictment, and he'll probably never surrender to the ICC?
Oh, yes, he has no reason why to do that, because the mandates were issued, some 10 years ago. And I think about the Darfur question, I think that even about the Darfur question, I think that it was not very just and not very accurate to send an arrest mandate against Omar al-Bashir, against the head of states. It was clearly a way of pressure, of making pressure to bear on Omar al-Bashir on the Sudan in order to get something else and concessions. For example, about the southern conflict that was being negotiated at that time, or the transitional period, and about the Darfur. I think you have hidden strategies by many countries that are quite clear, and I think that even the Sudanese government has discovered those strategies. And I think that about partitioning the Sudan more than between the north and the south, about Darfur, for example, there is a clear attempt to maintain the pressure on the government of Sudan in order to maintain the pressure and eventually to get concessions on other fields, but also on the political field, maybe to try to reach a kind of second partition of Darfur. This is quite in the pipeline, I think. Of course, not at the open, but in a hidden way. And I think that many experts do know that.
All right. Michel Rimbaud, former French ambassador to Khartoum, thank you very much indeed for your time